Picture this, right? You're running late for something incredibly important. You are gripping the steering wheel, just staring blankly at an endless, unmoving line of red brake lights on the highway.
Oh yeah, the absolute worst feeling.
Right, and you glance down at your phone, desperate for, any alternate route, and of course, there are 0 bars of service.
Naturally.
Yeah, exactly. The little location arrow is just spinning and spinning. So out of sheer mounting frustration, you spot a break in the trees and decide to take a supposedly quick shortcut down this, unknown, dusty dirt road.
I feel like we've all been there.
We really have. You've probably been in a situation remarkably close to this. It feels like a completely normal, slightly annoying, modern inconvenience. But what happens when that simple, everyday shortcut leads you, straight off the top of the food chain?
I mean, it represents the ultimate modern nightmare, really. It's the absolute shattering of our conditioned dependency.
Oh, absolutely.
We trust our infrastructure, our roads, our cell towers, our maps, so implicitly that we view them as permanent realities. When those systems vanish, we don't just lose our way. We are instantly reduced to a state of extreme prehistoric vulnerability.
Right, a vulnerability that our modern brains are just entirely unequipped to handle.
Exactly.
Well, that fragility is the core of what we are focusing on today. Today's anatomy of survival.
Yeah, looking at the terrifying illusion of our modern safety nets.
Precisely. We want to look at the specific psychological mechanisms that force everyday people to devolve into entirely primal mindsets.
The Bengali breakdown is incredibly astute, actually, in how it frames this not as a slasher story, but as a sociological study in decivilization.
Right, decivilization.
Yeah, it examines the exact speed at which we shed our civilized veneer the moment our biological existence is threatened by, an apex predator.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to set the psychological stage before we get to the physical one. We are in incredibly dense, isolated woods of West Virginia.
Deep in the woods.
Yeah. We have a medical student named Chris, who is the one stuck in that exact traffic jam trying to navigate his way to an important interview.
Right.
And on the flip side of the scenario, we have a group of college friends, Jesse, Carly, Scott, Evan, and Francine, and they're out for a camping trip. Both groups are about to discover that in these specific, uncharted woods, human beings are no longer the ones setting the tracks.
It's so unsettling. And the transition from modern convenience to absolute peril, it begins with a single, seemingly logical choice.
Right, a choice we'd all make.
Exactly. Chris is desperate and frustrated. He pulls into this decrepit, dusty gas station on the edge of the woods, seeking a way around the gridlock. He relies on his civilized instinct, ask a local, find a map, solve the logistical problem.
He meets this older man running the place who offers absolutely no help. I mean, the man is completely silent, just staring at him.
Super creepy.
Very. But there happens to be a large, faded map hanging on the wall of the station. Chris studies it, traces a line with his finger, thinks he's found a clever backdoor route to his destination, and proudly drives his car off the pavement and down this unpaved dirt road into the deep forest.
Right.
Now, I look at this gas station map not as a helpful navigational tool, but as a spider's web.
A spider's web is a fantastic biological analogy. Let's break down the mechanics of how a web actually functions.
Yeah, think about the mechanism. A spider doesn't chase a fly down. The web is purposefully hung right out in the open, spanning a gap that the fly naturally wants to travel through.
Right, it's passive hunting.
Exactly. It doesn't actively grab the prey, it relies entirely on the prey's own momentum. The harder the fly pushes forward, the more thoroughly it entangles itself.
That makes perfect sense.
That map was hung there to silently funnel unsuspecting, frustrated drivers directly into a snare. The old man doesn't need to say a word because Chris's own modern drive for efficiency does all the heavy lifting. He actively traps himself.
What's fascinating here is how the narrative deliberately and systematically dismantles every pillar of modern infrastructure, weaponizing Chris's own momentum against him.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
First, the highway fails him, creating the initial frustration. Then, the telecommunications network fails him, severing his connection to outside help.
Taking away the phone.
Right. Finally, the map, a physical representation of human knowledge and dominance over geography, completes the deception. The story doesn't just isolate him, it highlights how our reliance on these tools makes us entirely predictable. And to a predator, predictable prey is easy prey.
Predictability is their downfall, because what happens next relies on the characters acting exactly like civilized humans. Chris is driving down this dirt track, He gets momentarily distracted by the sight of a dead, bloody deer lying on the side of the road, a grim little foreshadowing, by the way, and he crashes his car straight into an SUV parked right in the middle of the path.
And that SUV belongs to our other group, the college students. And they aren't stopped to take in the rustic scenery. They are completely stranded.
They are stranded because their tires were shredded by thick barbed wire deliberately strung across the dirt road. This is not a fallen tree branch. This is a calculated, man-made strike.
Yeah, it's brutal.
The source breakdown points out that these traps are identical to the snares poachers use to catch wild game.
The design of the trap is brilliant in its malice, honestly. It targets the very thing giving these humans an advantage, their mobility.
Right.
By crippling the vehicles, the predators instantly level the playing field. The logical next step for any civilized person in this scenario, stripped of technology and stranded, is to seek shelter and find a landline.
Which is what we're all taught to do.
Exactly. Our society conditions us to move toward structures when we are in danger. But in this specific environment, that conditioned response is the very mechanism that blindly walks them straight into the predator's den.
They do exactly what society trained them to do. They split up. Evan and Francine stay behind to guard the quote-unquote valuable wrecked cars, while Chris and the other three hike deeper into the woods hoping to find a house.
And they do find one.
Yeah, eventually they stumble on an incredibly creepy decaying cabin in a clearing. It looks abandoned on the outside, but inside there's fresh, hot meat soup bubbling in a pot on a rusted stove.
The juxtaposition there is a classic, deeply unsettling psychological trigger.
Oh, totally.
The brain sees domesticity, a pot of warm soup, a burning fire, and associates it with safety, civilization, and comfort. But the surrounding decay contradicts that completely. That cognitive dissonance causes immediate panic because the brain cannot reconcile the conflicting inputs.
And the dissonance violently resolves into pure horror just seconds later. They search the cabin for a phone. Chris opens the refrigerator and finds glass jars packed with human organs.
Horrifying.
Yeah. And Carly walks into the bathroom and finds a freshly severed human hand sitting by the sink. While they are processing this nightmare inside, back at the cars, Evan and Francine are being violently harvested.
The trap is sprung.
Completely. The source material details this ambush. Someone silently stalks Francine from the tree line and brutally snags her face with sharp wire.
The trap is fully sprung shut. The illusion of safety evaporates instantly.
And the architects of the trap finally arrive at the cabin. The group inside barely has time to scramble underneath the bed. From that tiny, dusty space, we finally see the hunters.
The reveal is so intense.
The breakdown describes them as 3 severely deformed cannibals. One has 3 fingers, another has shattered teeth, and the third has a single eye. These are the beings weaving the barbed wire. From under the bed, in a state of absolute paralyzed terror, Chris and the others are forced to watch as these men drag Francine's fresh corpse inside, throw her lifeless body onto the kitchen table, and begin butchering her with a meat cleaver to cook.
The sheer psychological weight of witnessing that specific act is staggering to comprehend. It really is.
I have to push back here, though. Let's really analyze this. Obviously, being trapped in a house with a murderer is a nightmare scenario. But is it really that different?
How do you mean?
Well, running into a serial killer in a dark city alley is terrifying. Does it actually matter to the victim's brain if the killer wants to eat them versus just stab them? Isn't dead just dead? Why is the realization of what you are to them so much more psychologically paralyzing?
That is a phenomenal question, actually, and the distinction is everything.
Okay.
When you face a traditional murderer, a mugger, a serial killer, you are still a human being in the equation. You are a victim, yes, but there's a psychological dynamic of human-to-human conflict.
You're on the same playing field, kind of.
Exactly. You might negotiate, you might plead, you might appeal to their twisted sense of morality. But the shift from being a human in danger to being treated as livestock fundamentally bypasses your human ego.
Because you can't negotiate with someone deciding what temperature to cook you at.
Precisely. It plays on our most ancient, buried, evolutionary fears. It is the core-shaking realization that humanity's position at the absolute top of the food chain, a status we've enjoyed for millennia, has just been abruptly revoked. You aren't a medical student or a college kid with a future and a backstory. You are merely soft tissue and protein. It strips away the very concept of human exceptionalism and reduces you to the exact same status as that dead deer Chris drove past earlier. The brain simply cannot process the downgrade.
The absolute downgrade from apex predator to livestock. I mean, put yourself under that bed for a second as a listener. Every biological instinct you possess is screaming at you to run, to flee the danger.
Your adrenaline is redlining.
Right. But your modern logical brain knows that if you make even a sound, you will be on that table next. The sheer tension of your nervous system trying to manage that paralysis is unimaginable.
Agonizing.
They have to wait. Once the cannibals gorge themselves and fall asleep, the primal necessity to live drives the group to sneak silently out the door. But fleeing the cabin only reveals the massive industrial scale of the horror they've stumbled into.
Yeah, the scope of the operation completely changes the narrative. They don't just run into an empty, pristine forest.
No, they escape into the tree line and literally trip over a massive, hidden graveyard of cars. Dozens of vehicles, sedans, trucks, SUVs, all covered in rust and bloodstains, with luggage and belongings scattered across the dirt.
Just a horrific sight.
It's a horrifying visual census of just how many victims came before them.
It recontextualizes the threat entirely. This isn't a random, isolated incident of running into the wrong people. This is a sustained, intergenerational, systemic harvesting operation. The cannibals have industrialized the hunting of humans.
The cannibals wake up, discover their fresh meat has escaped, and the hunt officially begins. The chase through the forest is relentless. Chris tries to use his logic, acting as a decoy to draw them away, but he is shot in the leg with a firearm.
So modern weapons are in play now.
Exactly. Scott tries a heroic distraction so the others can steal the cannibal's own rusted truck, but a primitive arrow goes straight through his chest, killing him instantly.
Notice the terrifying duality of the predator's arsenal. They are hunting with a seamless mix of primitive, silent weapons like bows and arrows and modern, devastating tools like shotguns and trucks that they have systematically scavenged from decades of previous victims.
Right, taking what they need.
They have assimilated the tools of civilization without adopting any of its morality.
The surviving trio, Chris, Jesse, and Carly, eventually manage to lose them in the dense foliage. They stumble into a clearing and find an old, towering wooden watchtower. They climb up, and inside this dusty glass box, they find a miracle, a working two-way radio.
A lifeline.
They frantically key the mic and call for help, and a voice actually answers. Someone on the other end asks for their coordinates.
The siren song of rescue.
Here's where it gets really interesting and just heartbreaking. The radio speaker is loud. The static and the dispatcher's voice echo out of the tower and down into the silent forest below.
Oh no.
Yeah. The cannibals, who were silently tracking them through the brush directly underneath the tower, hear the rescue call. The tragic, cruel irony is staggering. The radio, this pinnacle of human communication, the exact tool engineered to connect them back to the safety of civilization, becomes the very weapon that pinpoints their location and entirely dooms them.
It is a brilliant narrative turned by the filmmakers, highlighting a central, brutal theme of the story, which is the weaponization of hope.
Weaponization of hope, I like that.
The environment itself actively punishes every single reliance on civilized infrastructure. The cars led them into the wire. The paper map guided Chris into the snare. The instinct to seek shelter put them under the butcher's table.
And now the radio.
And now, the radio, the ultimate symbol of external salvation, alerts the predators. The narrative is forcefully stripping away their reliance on external saviors. It demands that Chris and Jesse abandon the idea of rescue and rely entirely on raw, primal violence to survive.
And the punishment for that radio call is immediate and extreme. The cannibals can't breach the locked trap door of the tower, so they simply use torches to set the massive wooden stilts on fire.
Just burning them out.
Our survivors are instantly trapped in a burning box 80 feet in the air, choking on smoke. Their only option is to break the glass and leap out into the forest canopy. They hurl themselves 20 feet through the open air, crashing violently into the branches of a massive pine tree.
That jump requires the complete override of the prefrontal cortex. Logic tells you a 20-foot jump into branches will break your bones. The amygdala takes over and chooses the possibility of broken bones over the certainty of burning alive. It is pure biological imperative.
The landing is brutal, but the cannibals are already adapting. They spot them in the branches. One of the hunters silently scales the trunk behind Carly.
This part is so visceral.
The source video describes the brutality of this moment perfectly. The cannibal swings a heavy metal shovel with massive force directly into Carly's face. The physical impact is so violent that her body plummets to the forest floor, but the trauma leaves her severed head tangled up in the high branches.
The suddenness of it is what makes it so horrifying. There is no monologue. There is no suspenseful buildup. It is just the blunt, mechanical efficiency of a slaughterhouse floor transposed into the treetops.
Chris and Jesse, traumatized and clinging to branches, are forced to defend themselves right then and there. They manage to physically outmaneuver the cannibal, weaponizing their own adrenaline, and shove him out of the high branches to the ground. They survive the night clinging to the tree, but they've lost everyone else.
This brings us to the psychological tipping point of the entire breakdown. Having their modern tools destroyed, watching their friends butchered, and being literally smoked out of a tower forces a profound paradigm shift.
A total reset.
Exactly. Chris and Jesse transition from being desperate prey, whose only goal is evasion, into survivors who understand they must dictate the terms of engagement.
They realize the prey must become the predator. The events of the next morning completely cement this shift. They climb down, trying to navigate out of the woods, when the cannibals ambush them again. Jesse is captured and dragged away.
Leaving Chris all alone.
Chris is left entirely alone in the dirt. Suddenly, the impossible happens. A marked police cruiser rolls down the dirt road. An armed cop steps out. Chris sprints toward him, desperately trying to explain the nightmare, but before the officer can even unholster his weapon, a silent arrow flies from the tree line, piercing the top's eye and exiting the back of his skull.
The ultimate symbol of civilized authority, law, and protection is instantly and effortlessly neutralized by primitive violence. The illusion of societal order is literally shot in the head.
The three-fingered cannibal emerges from the brush and starts lazily loading the dead police officer's body into the trunk of the cruiser to drive it back to the cabin. Now, earlier in this ordeal, Chris would have used that distraction to run as far away as possible.
Of course he would have.
But here, his brain operates completely differently. As the cannibal focuses on the body, Chris silently slides underneath the police car. He wedges himself up into the undercarriage, inches away from the tires, and hitchhikes a ride directly back into the absolute heart of the predator's den.
This goes beyond just being stealthy. This is a complete inversion of the predatory hierarchy. Chris realizes that the police car is no longer a vehicle of rescue. It is a Trojan horse. He is actively exploiting the cannibals' own scavenging habits against them.
He rides the undercarriage back to the cabin clearing. Inside, one of the cannibals has Jessie tied up and is casually sharpening a blade to slit her throat.
Running out of time.
Right. Chris doesn't hesitate or look for help. He systematically sets the perimeter of the cabin on fire, trapping them inside, and launches a frontal physical assault. It turns into a massive, desperate brawl.
Just utter chaos.
At one point, Chris is overpowered and pinned to the floor, being choked to death. But Jessie doesn't revert to being a damsel waiting for rescue. She snaps her own restraints, grabs one of the cannibals' dropped bows, and drives an arrow directly into the back of Chris's attacker.
Wow.
They fight their way out of the burning structure, inflicting severe, brutal wounds on the cannibals with their own scavenging tools, and leave the entire house to burn to the ground.
It serves as a literal baptism by fire. They don't just escape, they dismantle and immolate the entire infrastructure of their predators.
They survive the inferno and finally make the agonizing trek back to the paved road. Chris walks right back into the exact same dusty gas station from the beginning of our story. The complicit old man is standing there behind the counter.
That guy.
He shrinks back, terrified, because he knows exactly what goes on in those woods, and he sees that this blood-soaked man actually survived it. Chris doesn't yell at him, he doesn't throw a punch, he simply walks up to the wall, pulls down the faded map that lured him into the trap, and methodically tears it into pieces. So what does this all mean? Is tearing up the map just a practical courtesy to save the next driver, or is something much deeper happening here?
If we connect this to the bigger picture established by the Bengali analysis, that moment is the thesis statement of Chris's entire character arc. Think about his identity at the start, a medical student.
A healer.
Yes, his life is dedicated to preserving life, to healing, to operating within the highest, most ethical echelons of civilization. To survive the woods, he had to completely abandon that identity. He had to assimilate the brutal tactics of his hunters: stealth, arson, brute force, and primitive weaponry.
He had to become the monster to beat the monster.
And by tearing up the map, he isn't just saving the next lost driver, he's destroying the web. The map was the mechanism of deceit, the fragile bridge connecting the safe, modern world to the primal nightmare.
Right, he's breaking the cycle.
Exactly. By shredding it, he severs that bridge. He reclaims his agency, not through the authority of his civilized status, but through the raw, dominant power he earned by conquering the wild on its own terms.
Our heroes have seemingly broken the cycle. They drive away in a stolen truck, leaving the burning cabin and the old man behind. But as with any truly brilliant deep dive into horror, the story demands we look at the lingering aftermath. The source breakdown highlights a chilling final sequence that proves nature doesn't easily surrender its territory.
Civilization always desires to write the final chapter, to definitively assert that order has been restored and the monsters are dead. But the untamed world operates on a totally different timeline.
In the final moments of the film, days later, we see a completely different police officer. He is investigating the blackened, smoking ruins of the cabin, responding to that tragic radio call made from the watchtower.
Just doing his job.
He's kicking through the ashes, writing in his notepad, fully believing the threat was neutralized by the massive fire. Suddenly, without a single sound, the three-fingered cannibal, who somehow impossibly survived the inferno, rises up from the charred debris behind him. He swings a rusted weapon, kills the investigating officer instantly, and the story ends with this monster lashing maniacally into the silent, indifferent woods.
Thematically speaking, that ending is a masterpiece of lingering dread.
It completely pulls the rug out from under your sense of resolution. So I want you to think about this the next time you're behind the wheel. How often do you blindly trust a GPS when it reroutes you off the main highway to save 4 minutes of traffic?
Probably too often.
How often do you follow a faded sign in an unfamiliar place, implicitly assuming that because a road exists, safety and civilization must exist at the end of it? This deep dive is a stark, terrifying reminder of the extreme fragility of the safety nets we take completely for granted. We believe we are heavily insulated by our metal cars, our smartphones, and our paved roads.
But it's just an illusion.
But all it takes is one dead zone or one piece of barbed wire to strip the entire illusion away.
That ending leaves us with a profoundly unsettling concept to ponder long after we leave this discussion. If that cannibal could survive the total destruction of his habitat, if he could survive a raging inferno that should have sterilized the threat, it suggests something deeply fundamental about the wild. It suggests that the deep, untamed wilderness and the raw, brutal violence it represents can never truly be permanently conquered or paved over by civilization. We can build our highways through it, we can draw our maps, but the primal nature of the world merely waits patiently in the ashes for the next unsuspecting traveler to wander off the path. It leaves you wondering what other modern comforts might actually just be lulling us into a false sense of security, quietly and efficiently walking us right into a trap.
That is a deeply unsettling thought to end on, but an absolutely necessary one. A massive thank you to you for joining us on this exploration today, for stepping into the darkest corners of human survival with us. Stay safe out there, stay relentlessly curious, and maybe double-check your route before taking that next dirt road shortcut. We will see you on the next deep dive.